Hey y'all, welcome back to the Beth B Effect, where the vibe is unmuted, unafraid, and unapologetic. I'm your host, Beth, and tonight I wanted to jump back on because I know I did um, a quick live the other day about the silent treatment, and I needed to hop back on. Like, has there ever been a time where somebody has stopped speaking to you deliberately, and when you noticed, it changed how you respond to them? It changed what you did. You responded by trying to figure out what happened. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever been in a situation where you know you didn't do anything wrong? You didn't feel like you did anything wrong. If you did, it warranted a conversation. Maybe it was enough for the other person to say, hey, I didn't like that. But you noticed that, and then you're trying to figure out, like, what happened? You're trying to see, like, well, okay, what did I do? Then you're replaying the conversation 3 or 4 times in your head. And then there's that awkward silence for a little bit. And you're trying to figure out, like, what did I do? And what's crazy is I don't want to say crazy, but what's different is the fact that you have no clue what's going on. But the person who's not speaking to you knows exactly what they're doing. And they're doing it because they want to make sure whatever it is that you did to them or that offended them or just made them feel a kind of way, you never do that again. And I know this is kind of on the surface, but this is a really bad, it's a real situation. It's a situation where these unhealthy behaviors take advantage of how we respond to things that happen to us in life. The silent treatment is an unhealthy behavior. The silent treatment derives from a space where a person lacks emotional, or a situation lacks emotional intelligence, or a situation lacks communication. That lack of communication, that space where I could say, hey, I didn't like that. I felt offended by that. I don't like that. Can you not do that again? Or how about we refrain from doing this because that offends me or it makes me feel weird or it makes me feel a way when you say or when you do this. When you do this, it makes me. When you say this, it makes me. When you talk about that, it makes me. That's the space where communication should come in. That's the space where we should be able to talk to one another and say, yeah, I don't like that. And the fact of matter is, it's actually okay for you to say, I don't like that. Like, you don't always have to go with the flow in order to be a part of it. Yeah. And the sad thing is, like, we don't have the opportunity always to say what we feel because sometimes it comes from a space where we weren't taught how or we weren't allowed to speak about how we feel. So emotional intelligence is not something you that's readily available if you're not used to it. If you're not used to making a decision, if you're not used to being able to say how you feel, if you're not used to being able to be in a space where you have freedom of speech, then I get it. Like I get that some of us grow up in spaces where we have limited conversations. We have had lack of access to people who actually share words that matter. And sometimes in that space, we become adults with that same unhealthy behavior. And when one adult stops speaking to another adult rather than say, I mean, even if you said, hey, you pissed me off, like at least I know. But when you stop speaking, you've made several decisions in your mind. The other person, that unhealthy behavior says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We've played the conversation back in our minds 3 or 4 times, or we've played the action in our minds 3 or 4 times. And I'm telling you, it doesn't even have to be anything wrong. There could be a position that you want to go for at your work. There could be a pair of shoes that you want to buy. There could be a hairstyle that you saw someone else with. You put your own twist on it, and now the situation is weird. And to teach you a lesson, to teach you that you should never ever do that again, you're going to get the silent treatment. I'm not going to speak to you. I'm going to make sure that by not talking to you, you're going to try to figure out what it is that I've done, or vice versa. I know that's happened a couple of times. I know some of you are like have had that feeling sometimes. You know, when the person that you are inspired by, it doesn't seem like an awful situation to be inspired. It doesn't seem like an awful situation when you are the one with the healthier behavior, that you say how you feel, and then the response to it is, I'm going to be quiet because I need to make sure you never do that again. That silent treatment is a part of the conditioning process. The silent treatment is a tool that is used so that the person who's offended by you, make sure you don't do those things again. You never say or do. And again, you may have not said anything bad. You may not have done anything bad, especially anything according to your definition of unhealthy. But the person offended by you, the person who feels what you said, what you did, is going to make them make sure you never ever do or say that again. I remember a time when I saw a person who I considered friendly, and I would speak to this person quite often. And you would almost say in this situation that we were starting to, I thought we were starting to be friends. Like we were starting to be in a space where trustworthiness was going to build, where the friendship was going to grow, where we were going to be communicative, meet up, hang out, chill, like be friends. But then I was in a place, I saw them, and they didn't speak. And at first, I'm trying to figure out what I had done. What could I have possibly done? I don't see you that often. We don't really talk that often. We're building, I think. What did I do in the time of absence to force you not to speak to me? So then I started replaying conversations. I started replaying instances and moments where I may have encountered this person, or situations where I may have seen something, or maybe I was a place and didn't see them, and they were offended by me not speaking. I tried to replay every scenario in my head. But I couldn't come up with anything. I didn't see any place or any space where I disrespected or I didn't cater or there was a lack of attention. That wasn't the case. And that's the unhealthy behavior I had to look for, because in that particular incident, that scenario, I had to realize, maybe you're not speaking because you saw me speak somewhere else. And here's the thing, right? When you're an adult, because that's what I consider myself. I consider myself an adult. I think emotional intelligence is very important. I feel communication is very important. If I feel a way, I feel like I can say how I feel without offending someone. But you've got to be careful. You have to be careful with the people who are the most offensive, because they are the most sensitive. I'm going to let that sit right there. Because the people who are all the biggest dog with the biggest bark is the most sensitive. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, they're the most sensitive. They're the ones that you gotta watch out for, because in a blink of an eye you can shatter their egos and you won't even know you did anything wrong. You'll have no idea. None. You'll have no clue. And the moment you speak up for yourself in that space, that's the space where somebody's gonna be like, "How dare you? I can't believe you spoke to me that way. What made you think that? What? Why? Why me?" But when you learn to respect yourself, and you learn that people don't have the right to mistreat you, or unhealthy behaviors don't have the right to invade your space, that people don't have the right to put you in a situation where you feel that you have to spin your wheels to figure out what's wrong with them. You ever seen, like, unhealthy behaviors are somewhat equivalent to like 5-year-old children. You ever seen a 5-year-old who wants the candy and the parents like, "I said no." And then they get this thing where they go, and then the parent succumbs to it. The parent's like, "Oh, okay, I'll give you the piece of candy." And once the kid knows that that's what it takes to get what they want, that's the behavior that's performed often to get exactly what they want. Now, I'm not calling people kids, and I'm not saying that people are childlike. But what I am saying is some of those unhealthy behaviors are similar to immature behaviors. You ever see, some children, they you discipline them and they clap back. Oh, they yell, I don't want to go to my room. I don't want. They yell back, and the moment you stamper down and you're like, "Hey, who are you talking to?" Then it's like the theatrics start, the waterworks start. It's the stomping, the slamming of the door. I'm not going to talk to my mommy because it's those unhealthy behaviors that are very similar to immature behaviors. And the more we recognize that unhealthy space, the easier it is to manage any situation where you see or you identify that behavior as the issue. Once you see that those similar characteristics, those similar behaviors, how this behavior looks like that behavior, it's easier to manage. Because we should be able to talk to one another, but that's not always the case. And in that situation where someone can't speak to you because they're experiencing an unhealthy behavior they cannot control, it is not up to you to fix that behavior. It's up to you to manage your own behavior. If someone decides not to talk to you and they're doing it on purpose and you see it on purpose, initially asking what the issue is probably the best response to the unhealthy behavior, right? Because we could go and ask, hey, you're not talking to me? Like, what happened? Are we not speaking? But if somebody stares you down and they're determined for you to see them so they can say with their eyes, I'm not speaking to you, then you've got a decision to make. Maybe you need to say to yourself, hmm, and then I'm not saying go out and approach every person either. Some situations are not approachable. Some situations don't deserve your attention, right? We have to be mindful. Where does where does this interaction take me? How will this be helpful if I try to manage this? Is it beneficial in any way? Am I losing something? What am I losing? What am I losing by this person not speaking to me? If it's nothing, then we have a decision to make. But we also have to be mindful that I you deserve so much. I deserve so much. I deserve respect. I deserve at least a conversation. And if that's not the case, then I don't feel like I need to offer one up. Because speaking goes both ways. Sometimes the inquiry is necessary. Sometimes it is. Maybe there is a situation where, you did offend somebody or I did offend somebody. Maybe there is a situation where I need to go and say, hey, I know we talked the other night. Maybe this wasn't good for us. Is there anything that I said that was offensive? And then we take it from there, right? And then if an apology is necessary, then I'll take that on the shoulder, right? But what if that wasn't the case? What if that wasn't the case? What if you don't like who I'm talking to? You don't like my perky personality. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe I'm too friendly. Maybe I'm too much of a social butterfly. Maybe I give people chances that you would never consider needs or deserves a chance because everybody should be non-judgmental. Maybe you or me, we could be overly non-judgmental, and some other people don't like that. They prefer for us to be judgmental. They prefer for us not to speak to the people they don't speak to. They prefer for us not to support people in the spaces they're in because it looks like they're doing better. They prefer us not to climb and do better in our own space because the ladder is getting shorter. We just have to be mindful of who we are, what we deserve, what those unhealthy behaviors look like. And there's an attachment. There's an attachment to every unhealthy behavior. There's an attachment to it. We just have to see exactly what it is. And in some instances where we cannot see it, we experience it. And if you feel it, it's real. If you feel it, it's valid. If you have to second guess the behavior of someone else who normally wouldn't exhibit the behaviors that make you question their actions, hmm, but if the actions are deliberate, if the actions make you feel like, are we not speaking? That silent treatment is strong and long. It's conditioning. It's meant to condition. It's meant to teach you what to do, what to say, what not to say, what never to do again, how to stay in a space that won't offend me, stay in a space that doesn't outrun me, doesn't outdo me, doesn't outspeak me, doesn't outsee me, doesn't offend me. Because I'm sensitive. I don't show it, but those unhealthy behaviors create spaces in that show how sensitive a person truly is, because that's a defense mechanism. It's part of a defense mechanism. It's part of a toolbox that has like silent treatment, mean bad, barker, uh, cursor outer. It has those pieces are in that box, and that box says defense. And every now and then, one of those tools come out to protect the person who's carrying it. But for every defense mechanism that is used in an unhealthy manner, unhealthy defense mechanisms, they can be managed. They can definitely be managed. Now, I'm not telling you to walk around and ignore everybody. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that some instances where you are being ignored that you should not question it, because again, we could very well be the reason that someone chooses not to speak to us. We could have said something offensively. We could have done something. We could have been in a space where they were just offended by us. And it could be a small gesture that created this thing that made them feel they had to question you. And that's okay, because that's where healthy relationships start, right? Because if you do something or I say something and we're in a space where we're like, then at some point we are going to come together and talk, because now we're concerned about the situation. We're concerned about why you're not talking. And if why we're not speaking to one another. And that's a safe space. That's a safe space where you know there's a nurtured relationship. There's a relationship where you and the other person are genuinely concerned about what happened. Both of you are looking for closure. And closure is sometimes the space where we do that wiggle and figure out what happened. Sometimes two people can stop speaking and they have no clue why they stopped speaking at all. One person didn't say good morning, another person saw that there was no good morning. They may have been in a rush, but then once there's no good morning, time, gets in between everything, and now we're not speaking, and we have no clue why. But sometimes we have to go to the person and say, hey, did I do something? And that's where we'll find out, yeah, no, you didn't do anything. I thought I did something. I was trying to figure it out myself. I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about the situation where the person is deliberately being quiet and wants you to know that they're being quiet. They're being quiet and they're not talking to you. They want you to know that they're not talking. That unhealthy behavior puts you in a situation where you think you need to do better. You think you've done something wrong. And you spin your wheels trying to get out of the mud. But traction, you never gain traction. You never gain traction. We have to be mindful of those unhealthy spaces. We have to be mindful, because if we allow that conditioning to change how we respond to something they don't like, it changes how we respond to something they said. It changes how we respond to something they're doing. I know someone who went, I know a situation where there was a cell phone involved, and one person looked into another person's private business, and everything in the phone was inappropriate. And don't forget the Beth B Shift. This space is about telling lived experiences, right? Things that actually happened. And then in that space where we identify that unhealthy behavior, we see the shift. And in that situation, the cell phone had all kinds of inappropriate things in it. And when I was asked my advice, I mean, I don't go looking for anything, because I am not prepared. I'm not prepared to manage what I see if there's something inappropriate in a space that I cannot control. So personally, I would never go through a person's cell phone. But I'm sharing this because I know there are plenty of instances where that has happened. And when you go looking for it, you find what you're looking for. But because I know I'm not prepared to manage that process, I don't do it. But in the case where it was done, one of two things can happen. Either you approach the situation and say, I violated you, went through your phone to see if you were violating me. And now that I see that you have, I need to figure this out. Like, what's up? And instead of there being a healthy conversation, the person who was violated by leaving his cell phone unlocked stopped speaking for a whole month. I know somebody's probably like, yeah, well, you went through my cell phone, so I should be able to not speak. Yeah, you're probably right. But if you're in a relationship, like, your phone is your phone. You're violating me at the same time with the inappropriateness. Like, where do we draw straws? But when you're in that space, right? Here's a Beth B moment. When you see it, you can't unsee it. So no matter who was right or who was wrong in that situation, there's right and wrong in both scenarios. The fact of the matter is there's some inappropriate behavior taking place. You question the integrity of the person and then had to force yourself into their privacy so that you can find out what you needed to learn. Same thing with the silent treatment. The silent treatment is not always healthy for us. When we see something, we have to shift. We have to start saying to ourselves, what can I do to make myself okay? What can I do to manage this process so I don't take so many hits? Why is it every time something happens to this effect, I'm the only person taking the hits? Why do I feel so bad about speaking up for myself? Why do I feel so bad about protecting myself? Why do I feel so bad trying to make sure I'm okay? And even when I know I'm right, there's still always that little piece that's like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have said that. Maybe. And that's where that unhealthy behavior becomes unfair. And one of my shorts, I think I did self betrayal. Self betrayal is huge, and we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about the things that we do to ourselves, trying to please someone else. We just don't get enough of that. And accepting the silent treatment from someone is part of self betrayal. If I will let you ignore me for right now, I'm letting you ignore me because I'm desiring a conversation with you. So I'm allowing you to be in a space where you're ignoring me. I'm being ignored. And as a result, I'm wondering what I can do to make you talk to me. Like, what? And then the more I try to make you talk to me, the more armor you put on to force yourself not to. Yeah, no. Mm-mm, no. So what do we got to do in that space? In that space, I have to question: is it really worth figuring out why is it really worth it? In some cases, it is. I'm not saying that it's always that you always have to be the person to say, I'm not going to figure out why they're not speaking to me. That's not what I'm saying here. Sometimes there's a reason. Sometimes there is a legitimate reason. But sometimes there's an unhealthy actor, and that unhealthy behavior is not talking to you on purpose for the purpose of controlling. That is the conditioning process. That's how a person who uses that unhealthy behavior to condition someone else And then when they speak to you again, it's like nothing happened. It's all good. Nothing happened. You pick up right where you left off until they're unhappy with you again. And then what happens? That unhealthy behavior returns. You gotta watch the patterns because it's the charm and the charisma that makes you feel like, oh my God, they're speaking to me again. Okay, I'm gonna do everything right. I'm gonna be perfect this time. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna make sure I text back. I'll be on time for everything. I'll be in a space where they want me to be, and I'm gonna be okay right here. I'm gonna be right here. I'm gonna be safe right here because I'm gonna do what I think is best for us so that we can move forward and you don't have to ignore me at all anymore. Well, we know that doesn't always work. We know that doesn't work. We know that doesn't always work. You can choose the wrong food at lunchtime, and because you didn't send 50 cents or you chose something that was unfamiliar to them, but they weren't interested in, maybe you want to do something different in life. Maybe you're aspiring to be a better version of yourself. And every time you discuss something that makes you feel better so that you can be better, that unhealthy behavior sprouts and its ugly head to make you feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Hey, Tasha, my messages just came in. I don't know if anyone else is responding, but if you guys are, I cannot see it. So I truly apologize. I'm still so new to this. I'm trying to manage these platforms so that everyone is aware and people can see. But I want to get this. People deserve to know this information. Like there are so many unhealthy behaviors, and we experience them every day. We experience these unhealthy behaviors every day, and some of us don't want to talk about it. Some of us rather move on. Because and then some of us are in a space. Well, I always speak up for myself. I stand on all 10. Ain't nobody gonna talk. You're probably right. But then there's some of us who are not that way. Some of us try not to deal with things in a space where it's gonna make us feel like it's gonna make the matter worse. And if you're that person, sometimes that unhealthy behavior is not yours to manage. Like sometimes it's just not. Thanks, Tasha. I appreciate you because this is the space that we live in where we feel like we always have to manage another person's behavior instead of holding them accountable for their own behaviors. Like, why am I holding myself accountable for another person who chooses not to speak to me when I do something they don't like? And it could be minute. It doesn't have to be big at all. It doesn't have to be anything great at all. It can be so simple and right back to that behavior of the child who wants the candy bar. The candy bar is it's not clothes, it's not a teddy bear, it's nothing extravagant. It's a candy bar. But the immature behavior says act up, cry, and make as much noise as possible so you get what you want because you know if you act up in this space, your parent is going to give you everything that you've been looking for, everything that you want, just to make you be quiet. And in that response is where we see the unhealthy behaviors go from being immature, right? Because we don't learn at a certain level that that's not how you get what you want, to being unhealthy. And it puts us in a situation sometimes where we don't want to be, some of us don't know how to climb out of it. Some of us don't know where to be. We don't know how to manage it. All we can try to do is be silent and be good. But the more you're silent and the more you're allowing someone else to do what it is they want to do, as long as you allow someone else to have their unhealthy behaviors that affect your emotions, dictate your happiness, dictate your thoughts. How many times have you been in a situation where someone stopped talking to you and now you've spent 16 hours while you were awake after you woke up from an 8-hour sleep, probably 5 because you were still worried. But how many times did you wake up from that sleep and you go, oh my God, I hope so and so speaks to me today. I'm gonna power up and do better. You see them and there's nothing. And now in your mind, you're fighting to figure out how you can make this go away because you need to manage their feelings. Like, I'm not managing your feelings. You're an adult. It's not our responsibility to manage someone who these feelings. We can't manage these feelings. And it's not your responsibility to manage unhealthy behaviors. It's not. You are not super person. You don't get to walk around and make sure everybody is okay at your own expense. Unhealthy behaviors are what they are. Unhealthy behaviors do what they do. And in this case, allowing someone to give you the silent treatment so that they can condition how you respond to their behaviors, what they think, what they do. And I know the cell phone thing was a little sketchy, but just think about this, right? The unhealthy behavior was already happening in the phone. The person who went in and invaded this person's privacy by wanting to see what was happening in that phone was probably wrong. I will never say that they weren't. I'm not for invading someone's privacy. But here's the thing. You're violating me. If you're violating me, I feel like I need to protect myself. I'm not saying I promise you I will not ever go through anyone's cell phone. I think that it's because I don't want anybody to go through my cell phone. Because there's a matter of security here, right? There's a matter if it was okay for everyone to go to your cell phone, we wouldn't have passwords. Don't try to chew me up with, ooh, she got a password. Why can't nobody go through her phone? Because you can't. The fact of the matter is, the person who was violated wasn't spoken to for a whole month to teach them, don't you ever go through my phone again. Don't you ever violate me. Like, I can do what I want to do. I can be where I want to be. I can talk to whoever I want to talk to. I can have whatever pictures I want in my phone. It's my phone. But don't you ever do this to me again, because you see the consequences. You see the consequences of what it is you do when you violate me. I'm the violator here. You don't get to violate me. That's another thing that the silent treatment has. It adds that piece where it's like, I just ticked you off, right? I'm a ticking time bomb. And because you're responding to my unhealthy behaviors, you stood up for yourself, or you're responding to my unhealthy behaviors and you got an attitude, or you're responding to my unhealthy behaviors and you're saying things that hurt my feelings because I'm really sensitive and I don't want you to say that to me because I should be able to do what I want to do because I want the candy bar. Now I'm not talking to you. And here's a lesson. Don't you ever do that again. Because if you do it again, I'm going to take even longer to not talk to you. That conditioning process, when you are unfamiliar with it, it gets heavy. And it can ruin our emotions. It can drive us into a space all day. And if we let it prolong and not see the unhealthy space that it creates when we allow someone else's unhealthy behavior to dictate our space. If you allow an unhealthy behavior to invade your space, it'll take advantage of any space that you leave available. That's what it does. It will invade any space that is available. And I think one of the biggest things that we go through as a human being, we say, why? Like, why would somebody, why would that, why not? If we start asking why not, we'll kind of see what's really happening here. Unhealthy behaviors exist because they can. We have to stop looking for the whys and accept the fact that it is. Unhealthy behaviors exist because they can. We allow them to exist. Nobody stops them. And if you do, sometimes you have to do it by force. And that's the space that some of us don't want to live in because we're so peaceful and humble inside. And I'm with humble. I am not trying to say that we should not be humble because I'm humble. I will sometimes be in my little shell if necessary to keep the peace. I will throw my hands up in surrender mode and say, yeah, I need to keep the peace because I have to, once you assess the situation, you got to assess it, see what it is. If it's worth managing, then you try. But if it's not worth managing, then I'm not here to protect anybody's feelings. I'm not here to manage someone else's feelings. That's not what I'm here for. I have to protect my own feelings because my feelings matter. And they're valid. And they're not valid because someone else believes them. They're valid because I say so. And I have the right to do that. I have the right to think about myself. I have the right to protect myself. I have the right to be certain and confident in my thoughts, beliefs, and know that I deserve anything better than the silent treatment. Because the silent treatment just wants to put me in a box. And I don't want to be in a box because I love my freedom. I don't want to be in a box. So the takeaways from today's episode, we are not here to manage another person's unhealthy behavior. We always should identify whether the silent treatment is active and in condition mode. Thanks, Tosh. I appreciate you. Because, this is where we have to be mindful in a space where we question why we're unhappy. What made me unhappy today? Why am I on edge? Why am I feeling nervous? Why do I have the jitters? Okay, I have anxiety, but why do I feel like this? This is bigger than that. This is bigger than that. This is something else. And then once I go into, why are you not talking to me? Why are you not talking to me? Oh my God, why are you not talking to me? What did I do? Why are you not talking to me? Oh my God, what did you do? What did I do? What did I say? Where did I go? Why are you not talking to me? It can drive you to a place where you're like, everything shuts down because I need to figure out why you're not talking to me. But then when I back myself up and I look and I go, hold on, we're talking about another human being. So let's chill. Did I do something wrong? Was I offensive in any way? Because that's not who I am. So I would offer the apology if necessary. But the moment that I figure out that I did not do that, honey boo boo, no. I cannot. I can't do that. No. And once you see that unhealthy behavior, you see that behavior grow when a person gravitates to making you feel bad, wanting to be the one to lift you up when they know that they've not spoken. They're giving you the silent treatment. They know you're responding to it because now you're looking like, but they want to be the first one to come over and say, what's wrong? Now you know it's you. That's that unhealthy space where we have to be mindful that other people take advantage of a space that we allow them to live and roam free in when we do not protect ourselves. We have to be mindful that we deserve protection too. The same way you would hold somebody's hand and give them advice is the same way you need to hold your hand and give yourself advice. The same space you're feeling empty in, that is the same space that you need to make sure that you can hold yourself up in. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in what you think and what you believe. Everybody's opinion, not everybody's opinion matters. Sometimes you need the opinion of another person, right? You need to ask somebody who has the experience in the space. Hey sis, what do you think I should do? This is what I got. That's different. Mm-mm. But taking on everybody's opinion because you want to look, because not to say you want to look perfect, but because you don't want to be responsible for managing unhealthy behavior. When you don't want to hold people accountable because you want to keep the peace, that can sometimes create a bigger and heavier responsibility that you cannot manage. You have to be responsible for you. You are responsible for you too. You deserve love and credit. And I know we're talking about the silent treatment, but before I go, I do have to say this because these are the things that we have shared with each other over so many decades, where now we feel like if I say I'm doing okay, or if I feel good about myself, or if I like my hair today, or somebody's probably gonna be like, "Oh, Beth, I loved your show, but your glasses were gleaming in the light and they were all over the place, and I really couldn't see your eyes." Oh, okay. Well, watch the next episode. I love you, but I really like these glasses and I want to wear them because I'm feeling different about the space that I'm living in. I'm feeling different about the skin that I'm living in. And although I would love for the entire world to listen to what I have to say, if my glasses stop you from listening to that because the light is shining on them, then, I got your next episode. But I deserve to feel good about myself. I deserve to feel good about what I'm saying. I deserve to share this with you because somebody can benefit from these words because everybody is going through something, right? But most of us are dealing with someone who's choosing not to talk to us. They're on purpose giving us the silent treatment. And we are living in the shadow of that person's unhealthy behavior because we are trying to manage it when that is not our responsibility. The goal is to have a healthy space, a healthy mental space. We don't like to talk about mental health, but I love it there because that's the space where I see, oh, that's why that's happening. Oh, okay. Oh, that's why that's happening. I'm allowing that to happen. I'm allowing that to happen. So how do I not allow that? Let me back out of this for a bit. Look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and then I figure it out. And once I figure it out, what I say, you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you can't unsee it, you have to do something about it. Because if you don't, that unhealthy behavior will invade all of your space. I appreciate you guys for staying with me. Next episode will be this coming Thursday. Stick around because we're exposing the unhealthy behaviors. Because I'm not beat for. Y'all know, until we see each other again, stay grounded.